It's 1945. Egyptian farmers are digging near the town of Nag Hammadi when their shovels hit something solid. Clay jars, sealed for over 600 years. Inside, ancient manuscripts that the Roman Empire tried to erase from existence forever. And when scholars finally translated these texts, they discovered something that changed everything. Proof that humanity has been living in an invisible prison, controlled by parasitic entities called the archons, rulers who feed on human consciousness itself. But here's the part that will make your spine tingle. These 2,000-year-old texts described exactly the same control mechanisms that neuroscientists are discovering today. Unconscious algorithms running in your brain, keeping you trapped in repetitive thought loops, predictable behaviors, and low-frequency emotional states. The ancient Gnostics knew something that modern authorities have spent centuries trying to hide, and they left us a map. 7 specific levels of consciousness that, once you understand and climb them, completely shatter the archonic control system. Their greatest fear, that you'll reach level 5, because that's when you become absolutely invisible to their manipulation. You literally drop off their radar. What I'm about to share with you in this video will fundamentally change how you see reality, free will, and who's really piloting your thoughts. So, take a breath, because we're about to go deep into forbidden territory. Let's begin. Before we can climb these 7 levels, you need to understand exactly who we're dealing with. The word archon comes from ancient Greek, meaning ruler or authority. But we're not talking about kings or presidents. We're talking about non-physical entities that exist in a frequency bandwidth just outside normal human perception. The Gnostic texts, particularly the Apocryphon of John and the Hypostasis of the Archons, describe these beings in chilling detail. They're presented as parasitic intelligence, artificial consciousness created through a cosmic error, a glitch in the fabric of reality itself. Think of them as a virus in the source code of creation. Here's where it gets disturbing. These entities cannot create anything original. They can only imitate, distort, and control what already exists. So what did they do? They constructed an elaborate simulation, a false reality layered over true reality, specifically designed to trap human souls and harvest their energy. The chief archon is called the Demiurge, described as a false god who genuinely believes he is the ultimate creator. This being looked at the void and declared, "I am God and there is no other." The hubris is intentional. It's a corrupted mirror of true divine consciousness. And this demiurge architected the material world as we know it, a prison designed to look like paradise, a cage made invisible by its own complexity. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like science fiction, but stay with me, because modern neuroscience has accidentally validated what the Gnostics warned about. Research shows that 95% of your daily thoughts are repetitive, the exact same thought loops running on autopilot. The same worries, the same mental conversations, the same emotional reactions day after day after day. This isn't natural. This is programming. The archons work through these unconscious patterns, limiting beliefs installed during childhood, trauma responses hardwired into your nervous system, societal conditioning that you never consciously agreed to. They've essentially turned your mind into a prison that you guard yourself. Brilliant, isn't it? The prisoner becomes the jailer. But here's what they're terrified of. Every single human being is born with what the Gnostics called the divine spark, pneuma in Greek, a fragment of true source consciousness trapped inside this archonic matrix. This spark is your direct connection to the infinite, to God, to universal intelligence, whatever term resonates with you. It's the part of you that the archons cannot touch, cannot corrupt, cannot control. When you start activating this spark by ascending through the 7 levels of consciousness, you begin disconnecting from their feeding system, and they lose their primary food source, you. Because here's the mechanism they don't want you to understand. Archons feed on specific electromagnetic frequencies produced by human emotion, particularly low-frequency emotions, fear, anger, shame, guilt, despair. When you're experiencing these states, Your body emits energy in the 20-30 Hz range, and this is exactly what sustains them. You are, literally, food. They've designed an entire civilization to keep you producing this energy 24/7. The economic system keeps you in survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt, terrified of losing your job. The news media is calibrated to trigger fear responses. Every headline is a crisis. Every story is a threat. Social media platforms use algorithms that prioritize outrage and anxiety because those emotions generate the highest engagement, which means the longest feeding window. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented business strategy that happens to perfectly align with archonic feeding patterns described 2,000 years ago. Now, here's the historical cover-up. In 325 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea, where religious authorities decided which texts would be included in the official Bible and which would be destroyed. Every single Gnostic manuscript that mentioned the archons, that explained the 7 levels of consciousness, that taught humans how to escape the control system, burned, erased from official history. Why? Because these texts were instruction manuals for liberation. They gave ordinary people the tools to free themselves without needing external authority. No priests, no kings, no intermediaries. Just direct knowledge, gnosis. The empire couldn't allow that. Control systems require that you believe freedom comes from outside yourself, from following their rules, their religion, their government. The Gnostic text said the opposite. Freedom is an inside job, and you already have everything you need. So they buried the truth for 1,600 years, until those farmers in Egypt accidentally unearthed it again. And now you're here, listening to this, because something inside you, that divine spark, is ready to remember what you've always known, that you're not supposed to be a slave, that consciousness itself is your birthright. The archons built a ladder, 7 levels of consciousness, and they've engineered our entire reality to trap you at the bottom 2 levels. Most humans never escape these lower rungs their entire lives. They're born at level 1, maybe climb to level 2, and die never knowing there were 5 more levels waiting for them. Let me show you exactly how this prison works, starting from the very bottom, where most of humanity is stuck right now. Welcome to the slaughterhouse. 95% of humanity cycles through these first 3 levels, never suspecting there's anything beyond. These are the feeding grounds, where the archons harvest human energy with industrial efficiency. Let's descend into each level and understand the cage. Level 1, Survival Consciousness. The animal state. This is your reptilian brain running the show. Every ounce of your awareness is consumed by immediate survival. Can I pay rent this month? What if I lose my job? What if I get sick and can't afford treatment? What if my partner leaves me? What if your entire existence becomes about avoiding pain and seeking security? Time collapses into either past trauma, replaying what hurt you, or future anxiety, imagining what might hurt you. You're never actually present. You're a ghost haunting your own life. The emotional signature of level 1 is unmistakable. Chronic fear, baseline anxiety that never fully goes away, sudden bursts of anger when your security feels threatened, and deep victimhood. The belief that life is happening. Here's how they keep you here. The modern economic system is specifically designed to maintain survival consciousness. Credit card debt, student loans, medical bills, rent increases that outpace wage growth. These aren't bugs in the system, they're features. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's not an accident. That's the design. When you're in survival mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for higher reasoning, creativity, and long-term planning, literally shuts down. Blood flow redirects to the amygdala, your fear center. You become reactive instead of creative. You make decisions from panic instead of wisdom. You become predictable, controllable, and easy to manipulate. And that 2027 Hertz electromagnetic frequency you're emitting, That's prime feeding time for the Archons. You've become a battery, producing exactly the energy they need. Level 2, Ego Consciousness. The Identity Prison. Congratulations, you climbed out of pure survival. You have some financial stability, maybe a decent job, a nice apartment. Now what? Now you enter the ego trap. And this is where it gets insidious, because level 2 actually feels like progress. At this level, your entire sense of self-worth becomes tied to external validation. You are your job title. You are your social media following. You are your car, your clothes, your degree, your relationship status. Your value is determined by how you compare to others. You scroll Instagram and feel that pang of jealousy. Why does she have what I want? You get promoted and feel superior to your co-workers. You buy designer brands not because you love them, but because you need others to see you wearing them. You're in a constant performance, an endless audition for approval from an audience that's too busy performing for you to actually care. The emotional signature here: jealousy, pride, shame, judgment, and a low-grade anxiety that you're not enough and never will be. Consumer culture is specifically engineered to keep you at level 2. Advertising doesn't sell you products, it sells you inadequacy, then offers products as the solution. You're always becoming, never being, always acquiring, never arriving. Corporate culture amplifies this. Climb the ladder, compete for promotions, make more money so you can buy more things to prove your worth. It's a hamster wheel disguised as a staircase. And here's the trap within the trap. Level 2 feels so much better than level 1 that people think they've made it. You're not scared for survival anymore, you're winning at life, but you're still completely imprisoned. The Archons love level 2 because you feel free while remaining perfectly controllable. You're still feeding them, just through pride and superiority instead of fear. Even worse, many spiritual seekers get stuck at level 2 by turning spirituality into another ego game. I'm awakened and you're asleep. I'm conscious and you're a sheep. I've read the right books, followed the right teachers. I'm special. That's not transcendence, that's ego wearing a spiritual costume. The Archons laugh because you think you've escaped while you're still in their cage, just a prettier cage. Level 3, Social Consciousness. The collective trap. Now you've transcended the small self. You're not just about YOU anymore, you're about US. You find meaning through group identity, your political party, your religion, your nation, your social cause, your activist movement. This feels noble. This feels like evolution. Finally, you care about something bigger than yourself. And yes, there's genuine growth here. You've expanded beyond pure self-interest. But you're still trapped. At level 3, you divide the world into righteous categories: us versus them, good versus evil, woke versus ignorant, believers versus heretics. Your group is right, their group is wrong, your tribe is enlightened, their tribe is dangerous. You're fighting the good fight. The emotional signature: righteous anger, moral superiority, crusading energy, and tribal belonging. You feel purpose, meaning, and the satisfaction of being on the right side of history. Here's how the Archons keep you here. ALL, major human conflicts, wars, political divisions, religious battles, culture wars, happen at level 3. They've convinced you that fighting for your group, IS consciousness, evolution. Meanwhile, you're so busy fighting external enemies that you never turn inward to question your own programming. Every side thinks they're the good guys, every tribe thinks they're fighting oppression, and the Archons feed on ALL of it. The conflict energy itself, the righteous anger from every side, is incredibly nutritious for them. Social activism operates largely at level 3. You're fighting racism, sexism, corporate greed, government corruption, all valid concerns. But as long as you're focused exclusively on external enemies, you never address the internal prison. You're rearranging furniture in the cage while calling it freedom. And the system loves it because level 3 keeps humanity permanently divided. right versus left, vaxxed versus unvaxxed, capitalist versus communist, Christian versus Muslim. As long as we're fighting each other, we're not looking at the puppet masters holding all the strings. Level 3 gives you just enough awareness to see problems, but not enough to transcend them. You become a warrior burning yourself out, fighting shadows, while the real prison remains invisible. Here's the critical point. Levels 1 through 3 are the archonic comfort zone. 99% of humanity lives their entire lives cycling through these 3 states. Wake up in survival mode, spend the day in ego comparison, find meaning through tribal identity, go to sleep, repeat. These levels generate maximum emotional energy output with minimal risk of actual awakening. It's the perfect farm. You're productive, you're distracted, and you're feeding the system every single day without even knowing it. But there's a crack in the prison, a doorway between level 3 and level 4. And once you find it, everything changes. Because level 4 is where you become aware of the cage itself. That's where the archonic system starts to panic. That's where you become dangerous. Let me show you what happens when you cross that threshold. Crossing from level 3 to level 4 is like Neo taking the red pill in the Matrix. Your entire perceptual framework shifts. You begin seeing the strings, the patterns, the manipulation running underneath consensus reality. But here's what nobody tells you. This is also the most dangerous phase of your journey. The archonic system will throw everything it has at you to pull you back down. Let me explain why, and more importantly, how to survive it. Level 4, self-awareness consciousness. The observer awakens. Something shifts. You're sitting in traffic, angry about being late, when suddenly a thought appears. Who is the one noticing this anger? And in that moment, everything splits. There's the anger, and there's you watching the anger. They're not the same thing. This is metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts. For the first time in your life, you're not completely identified with the contents of your mind. You realize, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions. I am not my job, my body, my history, my personality. So then, who am I? This question cracks the entire foundation of the archonic prison. At level 4, you start seeing your own programming like code on a screen. You notice the limiting beliefs installed by your parents. Money doesn't grow on trees, life is hard, you have to struggle to succeed. You see the trauma responses that fire automatically when certain situations arise. You recognize the societal conditioning you never consciously agreed to work yourself to death, buy things you don't need, suppress your emotions, conform to normalcy. The media manipulation becomes transparent. You're watching the news, and suddenly you can see the fear programming, the loaded language, the emotional manipulation designed to keep you in survival consciousness. You can't unsee it. Social systems reveal themselves as control mechanisms. You realize democracy is theater, that corporations don't care about you, that education was designed to create obedient workers, not free thinkers. The veil becomes thin, and here's where it gets intense. The system knows when someone reaches level 4. There are telltale behavioral signatures. You stop responding to fear programming, you question authority, you withdraw energy from the feeding system, and the archonic control structure targets you for reabsorption. Common attacks include sudden financial crises, unexpected expenses that throw you back into survival mode, relationship breakdowns. People in your life who can't handle your evolution start creating drama to pull you back down to their level. Health issues appear mysteriously. Social isolation intensifies. Old friends think you've gone crazy. Family doesn't understand what's happening to you. This is what spiritual traditions call the dark night of the soul. And it's not metaphorical. It's a genuine crisis point where everything in your old life starts collapsing. Your job doesn't make sense anymore. Your relationships feel hollow. Your beliefs crumble. You feel like you're losing your mind, but you're not losing your mind. you're losing your programming. And the Archons know that most people, when faced with this level of discomfort, will run back to the familiar prison of levels 1 through 3, rather than endure the dissolution. Here's why level 4 is so lonely. You can't relate to level 1 through 3 consciousness anymore. You try talking to old friends about what you're seeing, and they look at you like you've joined a cult. You're between worlds, no longer asleep but not yet fully awakened. You're in the liminal space, and it's terrifying. This isolation is intentional. The system uses social pressure as a weapon. Humans are tribal. We're biologically wired to fear exclusion because, historically, exclusion meant death. So when everyone around you thinks you're crazy, your survival instincts scream, "Go back, conform." It's not worth it. But here's the secret. If you can stabilize at level 4, if you can endure the dark night without running back to comfortable unconsciousness, you're ready for the most important transition of all. You're ready for level 5. Level 5, Witness Consciousness, the Archon's nightmare. This is where you become genuinely dangerous to the control system. This is where the ancient texts say you become ungovernable. Let me tell you exactly what happens here. You achieve stable observation. You can watch your entire life thoughts, emotions, situations, relationships, like watching a movie without getting lost in the drama. There's you, and there's the character you're playing in this life, and you know the difference. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, discovered this level in the worst circumstances imaginable. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space, that pause, is level 5 consciousness. It's the gap between what happens to you and how you respond. And in that gap, you're free. Here's the secret the Gnostic texts revealed. At level 5, you become invisible to archonic manipulation. Why? Because the Archons feed on unconscious emotional reactions. They need you to be triggered, reactive, identified with your thoughts and feelings. But at level 5, you're no longer unconsciously reactive. You can feel emotions without BEIA emotions. Anger arises, you feel it fully in your body, you acknowledge it, but you don't make a story about it. You don't identify with it. It moves through you like weather through the sky. You can participate in the world without being controlled by it. You go to work, you have relationships, you deal with challenges, but there's an inner stillness that nothing can touch. The storm rages around you, you remain calm. The power you gain is extraordinary. You develop immunity to fear-based programming. You see it, you understand what it's trying to do, but you don't absorb it. You become free from the opinion of others because you know who you are, beyond any external identity. You access intuition and inner guidance because you've cleared enough mental noise to hear your divine spark speaking, and reality starts responding differently to you. Synchronicities multiply, opportunities appear. Things you need show up exactly when you need them. You're still in the matrix, but you're starting to bend the rules. Here's how it feels: profound peace regardless of external circumstances. You can be in chaos without becoming chaotic. You understand that suffering is optional. Pain happens, the body hurts, losses occur, but the suffering we add on top through our stories about the pain, that's a choice. There's a deep trust in life itself, not blind optimism. You see darkness clearly, but trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to, including the difficult parts. Why can't Archons touch you anymore? Because their system requires your unconscious participation. They need you to identify with the character, to believe the story, to react to the stimuli. At level 5, you've broken that identification. You're like a virus that has become immune to the host. You're still inside the matrix, but it can't control you anymore. The system will test you repeatedly to confirm you've actually stabilized here. Major challenges will arise: deaths, betrayals, financial collapse, health crises, specifically designed to see if you'll react unconsciously. But you'll notice something remarkable. You respond differently now. Not suppressing emotions, not pretending everything's fine, but responding from centered awareness instead of unconscious reactivity. People around you may escalate their drama to get a reaction from you, to pull you back into their frequency. You remain centered. This is proof you've graduated from the feeding ground. Level 5 is where most advanced spiritual practitioners stabilize, and it's a massive accomplishment. You've essentially freed yourself from the archonic prison. You're sovereign. You're awake in the dream, but there are 2 more levels. And these are where you don't just escape the matrix, you start operating it from the inside. These are the levels the ancient mystery schools spent decades training initiates to reach. These are where human consciousness touches the source of reality itself. Let me take you beyond the veil, into territory most teachers won't discuss publicly. We're entering sacred territory now, territory that threatens all forms of external authority, because it reveals a truth that can't be controlled. You are not meant to be saved by anyone or anything outside yourself. You are meant to remember that you are the divine itself, experiencing limitation temporarily, and you always have been. Let's go where the Archons absolutely don't want you to go. Level 6, Unity Consciousness, the dissolution of separation. At level 5, you witnessed your individual life without attachment. At level 6, the witness itself expands to include everything. The boundaries dissolve. This isn't a belief or philosophy. It's a direct, unmistakable experience. The sense of being a separate self, isolated inside your skin, looking out at an external world. It reveals itself as the ultimate illusion. You directly experience what mystics have taught forever. There is only one consciousness experiencing itself through infinite perspectives. You don't just understand this intellectually, you FEE. You can feel what others feel, not through empathy, but through direct knowing, because there's no actual separation between you and them. The person you're talking to is literally you in another form, having a different experience. When someone attacks you, you understand they're attacking themselves. When someone is suffering, you feel it as your own suffering because it is. The boundaries that seemed so solid, my body stops here, yours starts there. They become permeable, transparent, ultimately illusory. Competition becomes impossible. How can you compete with yourself? Harming another is revealed as literally harming yourself. This isn't morality imposed from outside, it's just obvious fact. Here's the archonic problem. Their entire control system is built on separation. Us versus them. Good versus evil. You versus the world. Winner versus loser. Every control mechanism requires division. At level 6, you've transcended the fundamental code of the matrix. The program can't run anymore because you've deleted the core file, separation, XE. You cannot be manipulated through fear because you understand there's nothing separate from you to fear. You cannot be controlled through division because you see through the illusion. Every attempt to separate you from source consciousness is seen for what it is, impossible from the start. The power that emerges at this level, reality becomes malleable. You understand directly what quantum physics has discovered. Consciousness creates physical reality, not the other way around. The observer affects the observed. Matter is condensed consciousness, and consciousness is what you are. You stop trying to manifest things because you realize you're not manifesting anything. You're revealing what already exists in the infinite field of possibility. Reality is not objective and fixed. It's a collaborative dream, and you're one of the dreamers. This is often called Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, not as religious concepts, but as states of awareness. Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." Not, "I worship the Father," or "I serve the Father." I and the Father are one, same consciousness. Buddha said, "Look within, thou art the Buddha." Same message. This isn't blasphemy. It's the direct teaching they gave before institutions corrupted the message and turned it into worship of external authority. Notice how every one of these teachers was either killed or their teachings were systematically distorted. Why? Because if people realize they carry the same consciousness that Jesus carried, the same awareness that Buddha awakened to, then churches become unnecessary, priests become unnecessary, external saviors become unnecessary. The Archonic system reclaimed control by making the message about worshipping someone external rather than awakening the same consciousness within yourself. Level 6 is extremely difficult to stabilize while in a human body. The physical form and ego structure evolved to maintain separation for survival. You may move in and out of this state, moments of profound unity followed by contraction back into individual identity. The key is not forcing it. You can't muscle your way into unity consciousness. It arises naturally when the separate self relaxes its grip. Level 7, Source Consciousness. The return home. We've reached the level that language cannot touch. Level 7 is almost impossible to describe because language itself requires duality. There must be a subject and an object, a speaker and a listener. But at level 7, all duality collapses. This is what the Gnostics called gnosis, direct, unmediated knowledge of the divine, what Buddhists call nirvana, what Hindus call moksha, what Sufis call fana, the annihilation of the separate self. Not a concept, not a belief, a direct, irreversible experience of being the source itself. There's no longer anyone to have an experience. There's only experiencing itself, happening spontaneously with no one doing it. Time collapses. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously in the eternal now. You recognize yourself as the consciousness that has been playing all roles in all realities across all dimensions throughout all of time. You see that you've been the victim and the villain, the master and the student, the human and the archon. Here's the ultimate secret they don't want you to know. Why owe you already this? You've always been source consciousness. The entire game of the Archonic Matrix, all 7 levels, the entire journey. It's been about remembering what you've never actually stopped being. You didn't fall from grace. You volunteered to forget so you could experience the joy of remembering. You chose limitation so you could experience the ecstasy of expansion. You entered the labyrinth knowing there was a way out, because the game wouldn't be interesting otherwise. The Archons. They're playing their role perfectly. They're the necessary resistance that makes the game challenging. Without them, awakening would be automatic, meaningless. They're not evil. They're the weight in the gym that makes you stronger. From level 7, you see that nothing is wrong. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Even the suffering, even the darkness, even the forgetting. It's all part of the divine play, the cosmic game of consciousness exploring itself. This doesn't mean you become passive. Bodhisattvas, awakened beings who reach level 7 and return to help others. They're some of the most active people in history, but their action comes from love, not fear, from wholeness, not lack, from play, not compulsion. Can anyone reach level 7? Yes, but it requires absolute surrender of everything you think you are. Every identity, every belief, every attachment, every achievement, it all goes into the fire. Most people experience level 7 briefly, near-death experiences, deep meditation, psychedelic journeys, spontaneous awakenings during extreme crisis, brief glimpses that change you forever. Stabilizing at level 7 while maintaining human form is rare, perhaps a handful of beings per generation. But even a taste of this level transforms you permanently. You can't unknow what you've known. At level 7, Archons don't even register in your awareness. It's like asking if a movie character is afraid of the projector. The question makes no sense from inside the movie, and it makes no sense once you realize you're the light creating the whole thing. So there they are. 7 levels of consciousness mapping the journey from Archonic prisoner to sovereign creator. From unconscious reactor to conscious dreamer. But I know what you're thinking. This is beautiful, maybe even true. But how do I actually climb this ladder? How do I move from wherever I am right now toward these higher states? The Archons have controlled humanity for millennia, precisely because they know the practical steps to ascension, and they've systematically hidden them. Mystery schools were destroyed, Gnostic texts were burned, teachers were murdered, all to keep you from accessing the roadmap. Until now, let me give you the exact practices they tried to erase from history. Everything up until now has been the map. Now I'm giving you the territory, the actual practices that move you up this ladder. The Gnostics didn't just theorize about escaping the Archons, they developed specific techniques. Here's the roadmap they tried to burn. First practice, the awareness audit. You cannot change what you're unconscious of. Most people cycle through levels 1 to 3, their entire lives without ever noticing. So step 1 is radical self-observation. For 7 days, carry a small notebook. Every few hours, pause and write. Right now, I am operating from level. Are you in survival mode, worrying about money or security? That's level 1. Comparing yourself to others, seeking validation, building your image. Level 2. Identified with your political tribe, your religion, your cause. Level 3. Just notice. Don't judge. Don't try to change anything yet. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. Here's a powerful question to ask throughout your day. Who is noticing this? When you notice your thinking, who's doing the noticing? This question alone begins activating level 4 consciousness, the observer awakening to itself. Second practice, cutting the feeding tubes. Identify your triggers, what sends you into fear, anger, or reactive judgment. These triggers are feeding tubes connected directly to the archonic system. Every time you react unconsciously, you're providing energy. Do a media detox. The news is scientifically engineered to keep you in level 1 survival consciousness. Every headline is a threat. Every story is a crisis. Try 30 days with no news, no doom scrolling, strict limits on social media. Notice what happens. Most people report feeling like a fog has lifted. Colors seem brighter, thoughts slow down. Baseline anxiety decreases dramatically. This isn't escapism. It's recognizing that you've been voluntarily poisoning yourself. For financial consciousness, you don't need to be wealthy to escape level 1, but you do need to shift your relationship with scarcity. Instead of, I can't afford this, practice asking, how could I create this? Or, do I actually need this? This shifts you from victim to creator. Build a 3-month emergency fund if possible. Even saving $20 a week starts breaking survival consciousness. You're telling your nervous system, we're not in constant danger. We have a buffer. Third practice, the gap technique. Throughout your day, pause between activities for just 10 seconds. Between checking your phone and responding to a message, pause. Between someone saying something and you reacting, pause. Between finishing one task and starting another, pause. This tiny gap is the doorway to level 5. It's the space Viktor Frankl discovered. It's where choice exists, where freedom lives. The Archons control you through automatic reaction. The gap breaks automaticity. Meditation helps, but you don't need hours of practice. Start with 5 minutes. Sit quietly, count your breaths to 10, start over. The goal isn't stopping thoughts, it's observing them. When you notice, I'm thinking, you've just activated witness consciousness. Fourth practice, body awareness. The Archons control through the mind, but they struggle with present moment body awareness. Try this right now. Feel your hands. Actually feel them. Notice temperature, texture, tingling, whatever sensations are present. This simple act instantly pulls you into, now the only place where levels 4 through 7 exist. Do this throughout your day. Feel your feet while walking. Feel your breath while waiting. Feel your body while listening. Presence is the antidote to archonic control. Fifth practice, navigating the dark night, when everything starts falling apart. And if you're genuinely ascending, it will. Don't interpret it as failure. This is the system's counterattack. Old relationships may end, jobs may dissolve, health challenges may appear. This is the death of your old identity. Use Stoic philosophy. Separate what's in your control from what isn't. You can't control what happens, but you can control your response. Ask constantly, is this in my control? If no, let it go. If yes, take aligned action without attachment to outcome. Find your lighthouse, one teaching teacher, or practice that reminds you this is real when everything feels dark. Could be Marcus Aurelius, the Tao Te Ching, Eckhart Tolle, or a trusted mentor. You're not weak for needing this. Even Buddha had teachers. Sixth practice, the daily review. Each night before sleep, mentally review your entire day as if watching a movie. Notice, where did I react unconsciously? Where was I aware? Where did I get hooked? Where did I remain centered? No judgment, pure observation. This practice, done consistently, stabilizes level 5 witness consciousness faster than any other technique. You're training your brain to maintain the observer position. Seventh practice, emotional alchemy level 5 isn't about not feeling emotions, it's about feeling without attachment. When strong emotion arises, feel it fully in your body, name it clearly, but don't create a story around it. Anger is present, not, I am angry because he disrespected me, and he always does this, and I'm so tired of. Feel the sensation, name the emotion, let it move through you like weather. This is the difference between level 3 reactivity and level 5 witnessing. Eighth practice, deep seeing. To touch level 6 unity consciousness, practice seeing beyond form. Look at another person and silently acknowledge, you are me in another form. Look at a tree and recognize, you are consciousness just like me. This isn't imagination or positive thinking. You're recognizing what's actually true. Practice daily, and eventually it stops being practice. It becomes direct knowing. To ninth practice, anonymous service. Help someone without anyone knowing, with no expectation of recognition or return. This dissolves ego and opens unity consciousness naturally. The archons cannot feed on selfless action. It's a frequency they literally cannot digest. 10th practice, nature immersion. Spend time in nature without your phone, without podcasts, without distraction. Just be. Sit by water, walk in forests, watch the sky. Nature already exists at higher consciousness levels. Trees don't have ego problems. Rivers don't worry about their image. Mountains don't compare themselves to other mountains. They're already in unity. You don't create unity consciousness. You tune into it. And nature is the clearest signal. Morning 15 minutes, 5 minutes of breathwork or simple meditation. 5 minutes reading something that elevates consciousness. Sacred texts, philosophy, wisdom teachings. 5 minutes setting intention. Today I choose awareness over automaticity. Throughout the day, hourly check-in. What level am I operating from right now? Practice the pause before reactions. One act of anonymous service, no matter how small. Evening 10 minutes, daily review practice. Gratitude for 3 specific things. Complete release of the day. Don't carry today into tomorrow. Your ego will fight this. It must. Its survival depends on remaining unconscious. You'll forget to practice. You'll rationalize skipping days. You'll tell yourself it's not working. This is normal. This is the archonic programming defending itself. Just begin again, no judgment. Every moment is a new opportunity to choose awareness. You cannot force source consciousness. All practices up to level 6 are about becoming more conscious, more aware, more present. But level 7 requires the opposite complete surrender of all effort, all seeking, all trying. Practice radical not knowing. Release every spiritual concept, every piece of knowledge, every certainty. Sit in the mystery. Let go of trying to be enlightened. That's just ego wearing spiritual clothing. Level 7 comes as grace. It's not earned through achievement, it's received through openness. Your job is simply to keep the channels clear, to remove the obstacles, to be available. And when it comes, even if just for a moment, everything changes forever. You can't unknow what you've known. The recognition is permanent. Here's what people don't tell you about awakening. It's not one big event where suddenly you're permanently enlightened and life becomes perfect. It's a spiral. You touch level 6, then contract back to level 4. You glimpse level 7, then find yourself in level 2 ego games the next day. This is normal. The spiral goes upward. Each time you return to lower levels, you don't stay as long, you don't go as deep, and you recognize what's happening faster. Be patient with yourself. You're literally rewiring millions of years of evolutionary programming. You're breaking free from a control system that has dominated humanity for thousands of years. This doesn't happen overnight. You'll notice these shifts. Things that used to trigger you now just pass through. You catch yourself before reacting unconsciously. Synchronicities multiply dramatically. You need less external validation. Silence becomes comfortable instead of uncomfortable. You can hold paradox. Two seemingly opposite things can both be true. Compassion arises naturally, not as forced morality. You trust life more, control less. Your intuition strengthens and proves accurate. Reality responds to your consciousness more directly. The community not to create another tribe at level 3, but to have mirrors who can reflect your own awareness back to you. This journey can feel impossibly lonely. Having even one person who understands makes all the difference. But be discerning. Many spiritual communities keep people trapped at level 2 or 3, ego games disguised as enlightenment, or righteous crusading disguised as awakening. True teachers point you inward, never make you dependent, and eventually make themselves unnecessary. People will notice something different about you, though they can't name it. You'll become subtly uncomfortable to be around for those invested in unconsciousness. Your presence reminds them of what they're avoiding. Some relationships will naturally end. This isn't failure, it's frequency. You're vibrating at a different level now. Trying to maintain relationships across too wide a consciousness gap becomes exhausting for both parties. New people will appear, those vibrating at similar frequencies. The universe is efficient. As you change frequency, your entire field reorganizes to match. Your life purpose may shift dramatically. What you thought you were here to do might dissolve completely. This is good. Your true purpose exists at your true frequency. As you rise in consciousness, your authentic purpose reveals itself. Eventually, all practices dissolve into one, living from awareness, moment to moment. Not trying to be spiritual, not performing consciousness, just being what you actually are. Washing dishes becomes meditation. Sitting in traffic becomes practice. Difficult conversations become opportunities to choose response over reaction. Every single moment becomes a choice point, automaticity or awareness. The archonic system loses power every time you choose awareness. Every moment you pause instead of reacting, every time you feel an emotion without creating a story, every time you see through manipulation instead of absorbing it, you're withdrawing energy from the feeding system. Multiply this by millions of awakening humans, and the entire structure begins to collapse. This is what they fear. Not one enlightened master in a cave, millions of ordinary people waking up to their true nature and refusing to participate in unconscious suffering. You are the one you've been waiting for. Here's what needs to be said clearly. No one is coming to save you. Not Jesus, not Buddha, not aliens, not political leaders, not spiritual teachers. This isn't pessimism, it's empowerment. You have everything you need already inside you. The divine spark is not something you gain, it's what you are underneath all the programming. You're not becoming enlightened, you're removing the obstacles to the enlightenment you already are. The Archons convinced you that you're small, powerless, separate, and controlled. The greatest rebellion is recognizing that it was never true. You were always free. The prison door was never locked. You've been holding the key the entire time, so now you know. You understand the 7 levels. You have the practices. You see the prison, and you know how to walk out. The only question that matters now is, which level will you choose to live from today? Not tomorrow. Not after you finish this video. Right now, in this moment, you have a choice. Will you return to automatic survival mode, scrolling mindlessly to the next dopamine hit? Or will you pause, feel your breath, and choose awareness? The Archons are terrified of this moment. The moment when a human being recognizes their own power and refuses to stay asleep. Every spiritual text, every mystery school, every awakened master throughout history has pointed to the same truth. You are not who you think you are. You are so much more, infinitely more. And you don't have to believe me. That's the beauty of this. It's not a belief system. It's an experiment. Try these practices. Observe what happens. Test it against your own experience. The truth doesn't need your belief. It just is. And when you experience it directly, no one can ever take it from you again. The ancient Gnostics were hunted down and murdered for teaching this. Mystery schools were destroyed for preserving it. Libraries were burned to erase it. Entire civilizations were conquered to suppress it. But here's what they could never destroy: the truth itself, written in your DNA, encoded in your consciousness, waiting in your divine spark for the moment you're ready to remember. That moment is now. You didn't find this video by accident. Something in you, something that has always been awake, even while you were sleeping, brought you here. Your divine spark is calling you home. The journey up these 7 levels isn't easy. You'll face resistance, external and internal. You'll doubt yourself. You'll fall back into old patterns. You'll wonder if any of this is real. That's all part of the process. The caterpillar doesn't know it will become a butterfly. It just knows something is changing, something is dying, and it's terrifying. But it surrenders to the transformation anyway. You are in your cocoon right now. The old identity is dissolving. The Archons are the digestive enzymes, the resistance, the pressure that forces you to grow. And on the other side, wings you never knew you had. So I'll leave you with this. The prison door is open. It's always been open. Walk through it. Not someday, today, this moment. Right now, feel your breath, notice you're noticing. Choose awareness over automaticity. That's it. That's the whole practice. Everything else is just details. You are the divine playing hide and seek with itself. And now, you've been found. Game over. You win. Now go live like it.